Hey there, everyone. It is child therapist Mr. Stu here to talk with you today about social skills in children and helping children to be socially savvy, helping them to understand how to communicate with others, how to get people's attention, how to be a trustworthy person, how to regulate themselves. We're going to talk about all those things today on this edition of the Facebook Live Social Savvy, Decoding the Complicated Social Skills of Children. Before we jump into that topic, though, I want to make sure that you are following Mr. Stu TV everywhere. Make sure that you follow Mr. Stu TV on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and YouTube. There are different things coming out across all of those channels over the next several days, weeks, and months that you are not going to want to miss out. And then our central location where you'll see so many different topics that we've discussed, that I've discussed, and so many different emotions that my team and I have helped explain to children. That is all located on YouTube. So make sure you're following Mr. Stu TV on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube so that you don't miss out on anything that is coming your way. And for everything together, as well as Mr. Stu TV merch and different resources that are available, check out MrStuTV.com. That's MISTERSTUTV, or as the Mickey Mouse Club would say, MISTERSTUTV.com. If you'll go there, there are all sorts of things that will hopefully be helpful to you and the children that are in your life. There are different resources to help kids with emotional regulation, conversation starters. There's also my children's book is available for purchase in both a digital download and a paperback copy. And there are also lots of different merchandise options so that you and your children can support Mr. Stu TV and bringing a positive message about children's mental health so that all children can be seen, heard, understood, known, and loved. Speaking of being seen and heard and understood and known and loved, let's talk about social skills. Social skills in children. And maybe this is a concern for you. Maybe your child is struggling to show different positive social behaviors, what we would call pro-social behaviors. Maybe they're struggling to show some of those things and you're wondering why that might be happening, but more importantly, you're wondering what you can do to help foster those skills in your child or in the children that you help to take care of. So today I'm going to be talking about some of the main reasons that I think children struggle with social skills, and I'll also be covering some of the social skills that I think are critical for children to learn in order to be able to really be socially savvy and be able to communicate with others in a way where they can get their point across, make sure that they're setting appropriate boundaries, remaining resilient and regulated, all those things. There are a few keys to all of that put together. The main thing that I see in the difficulty with children learning these social skills, it is not that children are on social media and so they get all these bad examples. It's not that children watch all these movies now and so, or children have too many virtual options and so they never have one-on-one conversations. It's not that in and of itself. The number one reason that I see children struggle with social skills is because the social skills that their parent or their caregiver is wanting to foster in them is something that the parent or the caregiver struggles with themselves. For instance, I'm going to talk about boundaries and why those are so important, why that is such an important social skill for children. And if children see that you are constantly at work, even when you're not at work, and they see that you don't like doing certain things, but you don't set certain boundaries, then they are not able to learn how to set those boundaries themselves. If you are wanting to foster in your child a sense of emotional regulation, their ability to recognize their emotions and be able to deal with those emotions in real time, if you are wanting to foster that skill in your child or in the children that you take care of, but they see you yelling at the TV during a football game and it's not just playful yelling, you are getting legitimately angry, or they see you and your partner fighting constantly or becoming overwhelmed by your emotions in different situations, do you yell at your cashier at McDonald's because they got your order wrong? If children are seeing that modeled, they're going to believe that is the socially acceptable behavior. Children will do what they see much more than what they are told, and because of that, the number one thing that I see as the issue is that children are not having a model about these socially appropriate behaviors. The number one thing that you can do to help your child learn prosocial behaviors is to model for them prosocial behaviors, because children will do what they see much more than what they are told. If you get upset and start to yell, and then when your child gets upset and they start to yell and you say, "Don't yell at me," that's a really confusing message for a child. If you get upset and you start to curse, and maybe it's completely acceptable for you to curse in whatever situation you're in, but your child is hearing that, and then they get upset and they start to curse, it's not that surprising. Their example of prosocial behaviors, their example of socially appropriate behaviors is one that is contrary to the thing you're telling them to do, and children will do what they see much more than what they are told. So in everything that I'm discussing today, whether it be trust and loyalty or regulation or negotiation, understand that the number one thing that you can do for your child is to model that behavior for them. So as I go through each of these examples of things that I think are incredibly important social skills for children, as I go through each one, I'll be giving examples of ways that maybe you're showing your child the opposite of what you want them to learn, and then I'll also suggest a way that you can model for your child the appropriate behavior or the behavior that you would like for them to be showing. The first one, the first social skill that I see children struggle with is just communication, whether it be saying things in a way or conveying things in a way that other people can understand those things, whether it's just getting the attention of someone that they want to be able to communicate with, or whether it be that they are having difficulty listening. Maybe it's not about the messages they're sending, but with their voice, but their body language when someone else is speaking is sending the message that your message is not important to me. So let's talk about each one of those components of communication. Let's talk about getting attention and different ways that you may want your child to get attention, some ways that maybe you're showing them getting attention in a disruptive way, and some ways that you can start to role model for your child getting someone's attention in a positive way. Getting someone's attention, there are some negative ways that a child might do this. Maybe they just start tapping over and over and over, and it's like, come on, hey, hey, hey. Maybe they just say your name over and over and over again. Mom, 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 Miss Howard, Miss Howard, Miss Howard, Miss Howard, hey, Miss Howard. Maybe it's just something like that where they're just constantly trying to get your attention in that way. Maybe it's just interrupting. Maybe they just walk right in. Maybe they don't get your attention first. They just start in on their conversation. Those are some ways that you might want to help your child learn new ways of getting someone's attention. But here's the question: how are you showing your child that you get their attention? Do you scream their name just over and over and over until they come to see you? Do you interject in their conversation? Maybe they're trying to share something with you and you just cut right in. You don't get their attention in an appropriate way. And a lot of times we just think, well, they're the kid, I'm the adult. But you have to remember that children will do what they see much more than what they are told. And so that whole, I'm the adult, and so I do things differently than the child, that can only work in a few situations where it's totally understood by the child why things have to be different in this situation. But in the situation of getting attention, you being an adult and there being the child doesn't really make much of a difference. You are going to have to model for them how you get their attention and how you get the attention of other people so that your child can see appropriate ways that they can get someone's attention. One way that you can do this is, rather than screaming across the room or even sending a text message to someone who's in the same house with you, is to actually get up, walk into wherever they are, say their name, and then start into whatever it is that you need. It starts everything at this just nice level where no one's screaming. And because even if you're screamed at, even if it's about something that's just not exciting or not something that's going to be, I can't think of the word, not something that when you say it, they're going to be upset by it. Upsetting. There we go. Maybe it's not something that's upsetting, but the way you got the child's attention makes them believe that this is about to be some upsetting information. So then they walk in and they're already upset, and then you're upset that you see that they're upset, but you didn't have anything to be upset about. Now you're saying that they have an attitude, all because why? The way you got their attention was inappropriate. So if you'll walk in and model for your child, this is the way I want to get your attention. Maybe they're talking to their friend and you need their attention as they are in the middle of a conversation. Do you just interrupt in the way that you don't want them to interrupt? And again, here we come back to that whole mindset of like, well, I'm the adult, they're the child. They need to just deal with it when I interrupt them. And again, you can try that, but children will do what they see much more than what they are told. And so if you are just interrupting them in the middle of their conversation, it's much more likely they're going to just interrupt you in the middle of yours. Do you model for them as they're in the middle of their conversation? Hey, excuse me, you all, but... And then go into what you need. You have to model it, or else children are incapable of just learning these skills out of instinct. It has to be modeled for them. The next portion of communication is just sharing your own thoughts. Is this something that's safe for your child to do in your home? Are they allowed to have a difference in opinion? Are they allowed to share about their feelings, even if it's, hey, I'm sad that you did this thing? Are they allowed to share that without you trying to talk them out of feeling sad or feeling angry? Can they communicate their feelings at home? If they can't do that, then it's very unlikely they're going to be able to share with other people about their feelings. But if home is a safe place for children to be able to communicate their feelings, or if you're a teacher, then if the class is a safe place for a child to even disagree with you in an appropriate way, then they're going to learn much easier how to share their thoughts and their feelings. Also, are you showing them how you want them to share their thoughts and feelings? In a little while, I'm going to talk about regulation and why that's such an important social skill. But in this part of our conversation with communication, Are you open about the way that you're feeling, or do you always say, "Oh, I'm doing great," even when your child can tell that you are not doing great? Do you try to push your feelings down, or do you share yours? Many times I see adults and they tell their child, "Oh, just tell them how you feel. Tell them how you feel. Why couldn't you just tell somebody how you feel?" And then I ask them, when was the last time you just told somebody how you feel? If children don't see that behavior, they're not going to know how to do it. And so you have to model for them, here's how you share emotions. A really fun way that you can practice this at home is through a game that I call Mountain Valley. And that game is a game that you can play around the dinner table. I actually just had a conversation recently with a family who plays this game around the dinner table. And what you do is everybody goes around and you share your mountain and your valley. And you can do this where everybody shares their mountain and then everybody shares their valley. Everybody shares their mountain and valley together. Everybody shares their mountain and their valley, and then everybody talks about one thing that they love about each other. Whatever, however you want to do it. But here's what it is. The mountain was the best part of your day, just the part that you enjoyed the most. And the valley was the toughest part of your day. That doesn't mean that you had to have a terrible moment in your day. It just means, what was the toughest part? Maybe the toughest part was just getting out of bed in the morning because you wanted to lay there longer. It doesn't have to be something extreme, but what was the most exciting thing for you in the day, and what was the toughest part? If you'll start to be open and honest about those things, then children will see this is a safe thing to do, and I'm allowed to talk about this, and you'll be modeling for them rather than just telling them, because children will do what they see much more than what they're told. And finally, in this part of our conversation about communication, do your children, or does your child, or do the children in your care know how to listen? That is a tough one. In today's world especially, it's all about putting out messages, whether it be on social media, or whether it be on video games, or whether it be on a platform like this. It's all about putting out your brand, your identity, your message, and everybody wants to put out their thing, and it can be really tough to sit down and listen to someone else's thing. Children have a really hard time just listening. They constantly kind of want to interject their part because they're still learning how to navigate all this social stuff. But the question is, how are you modeling that skill to them? When they are speaking, are you just texting on your phone? And then you get mad at them when they're texting on their phone when you're trying to talk to them? Do you just interrupt them with a question or with a statement of your own, or interject your story when they're in the middle of theirs? Because if so, then they probably are going to do those same things. Listening is so important. And a way that you can set this up to model this for your child is to really be deliberate in those moments where you are letting them know they have your full attention. That doesn't mean that you say it. It doesn't mean that you have to look at them and be like, "You have my full attention right now." But it does mean that maybe you put the phone down and away, or maybe you go put your phone on your charger and you come back and you say, "Hey, my phone's on my charger. I just wanted to hear about your day." And then just let them talk. Maybe they say things that are kind of disturbing to you. Maybe they've made some choices throughout their day that you disagree with and that you do not think were good ideas. Well, can you let them finish their full story before you start in on your comments? Maybe you'll be surprised that by the end of most conversations that I have with children, they've discovered on their own what they want to do next time to even improve on the way that they handled it this time. You have taught them well. And rather than just interrupting them and trying to teach them another lesson, maybe if you'll let them talk and really just do more listening, and as they finish their thought, not in the middle of a thought, but as they finish their thought, you ask a follow-up question, not a question that directs them into where you want them to go, but a follow-up question as something that you were interested in as part of that story. Maybe you'll see that children are much more socially savvy than you once imagined. And if you'll listen, then they'll be ready to listen when it's their turn. The next thing that I see children struggle with is regulation. Just this idea of being able to stay in control. The way I explain it to kids is through the movie Inside Out. And if you've seen the movie, you know that there's different emotions in the child's brain, and joy is kind of the lead emotion. Joy gets to push this button that controls the whole child's reactions to different things. And there's other emotions in the brain that are all talking to joy, and joy and these other emotions will negotiate and they'll talk about different things, but joy gets to push the button. Joy has the control. And that's how I explain to children what it means to regulate. That yes, there are all sorts of emotions that can give input, but joy is the reigning emotion. It doesn't mean that you have to walk around with a smile on your face all the time. What it does mean is that you will never allow another emotion like sadness, anger, fear to have the control. They can inform the decision, but they don't get to just cause a reaction. Joy gets to be your baseline. And that's what it means to stay regulated, that you can feel all these different things, and those different emotions are so important and do need to inform the choices and the decisions that you make and that children make. But those emotions should not cause reactions in us and in our children. Are you demonstrating that? When you get angry, does everybody on the whole block know? Because you are yelling about it and talking about just how angry you were and how you didn't tell anybody about it, but they needed to know that you were angry because of the way that you looked at them. Do children see you overwhelmed with your emotions? If that's something that's going on, then maybe it's important that you get some therapy yourself so that you can help learn how to allow joy to be your baseline rather than being overwhelmed and reactive to your different emotions. You can allow yourself to stay emotionally regulated. If you can do that, then your child is getting a role model of what that looks like, and children will do what they see much more than what they are told. So, if they see you staying emotionally regulated, they will be able to as well. If they do not see you staying emotionally regulated, it is very unlikely that they themselves will be able to remain emotionally regulated. All of that is all about modeling for children that yes, I can feel all these different things, and when we do Mountain Valley tonight, you're going to hear about all these different things that I felt. But joy was my baseline. I didn't allow any of those emotions to cause a reaction in me, or if I did, I made it right as soon as I could. Emotional regulation. What about the regulation you need to deal with people you don't like? How do you model that for your children? Do you constantly talk about all these people you don't like and how they're terrible and you're going to just stay away from them and you hate them and all these different things? Because if so, then when your child has a problem with another student in their class, expect the same behavior. But if you're willing to be cordial, even with people you don't like, and then maybe you do discuss, hey, they are not my favorite person. We have had run-ins in the past, but you know what? I still want them to have a good life, so I smile and say hi when I see them. If your child sees you modeling that behavior, it's much more likely they will model that behavior, because children will do what they see much more than what they are told. And if you will model for them how to stay regulated even around people you don't like, then they will be able to do that as well. I want to talk about two things, two more pieces of these social skills that are linked, and I'm going to go quick. The first one is negotiation. The social skill of negotiation, being able to say, you disagree from what I think, but we're going to have to figure out a middle ground here. There's two portions of that I think children struggle with. One is just thoughts and feelings. I think and feel this way, you think and feel a different way. I must be right, you must be wrong. Or could it be that we're both right, but just in different ways? That is a very complex skill for children to learn. Don't expect this one to come on when they are young. Probably around age 12 is when children can really start to understand the way that I think and feel is not the same for everyone. And even my friends can think and feel differently from me. Children might understand that, yes, my group of friends thinks and feels this way, and that group of friends thinks and feels another way, but it starts to get really difficult when a child is friends with someone that they think and feel differently from. As a matter of fact, most of the time early on when they experience that, that child is no longer their friend. They decide to swap friendships with other people that think and feel the same way that they do. Now, as adults, we do that also. The people we're closest to are likely people who think and feel at least similarly to the way that we think and feel. If we're surrounded by people who think and feel differently than us, and we're able to negotiate and regulate during those difficult times, then children will see that the world is not all black and white. There's a lot of gray, and it can be amazing when two people negotiate their thoughts and feelings together, because most of the time, if they can do that productively, they can come to an even better middle ground. So, negotiating thoughts and feelings. The second thing is to negotiate boundaries. If your child says that they do not want to give a hug to someone or give a high five to someone, do you push them to go do it anyway? Because if you do, then don't be surprised that your child may have difficulty respecting the boundaries of other people. The child said, I didn't want this to happen, and you told me I had to, so it must be that people's boundaries don't matter. If you'll model for children that when they set a boundary, a respectful boundary, that you will honor that, then they'll see that that is the same with others. One way that this is not modeled for children well is through tickles or tickle fighting. Many times, children are being tickled and they're laughing for a while, and then eventually they'll say, stop. And most of the time, adults will continue to tickle them. Why? Because it's funny to the adult, but to the child, you have violated a boundary and you think it's funny. And so they now believe that they can violate people's boundaries and that it should be funny. Does your child come up and smack you in the back of the head and laugh and think that it was funny? And you are so outraged that your child would do this thing, but did you respect their boundary when they set one for you? If you'll respect their boundaries and negotiate boundaries with them about things like bedtimes or consequences, then they will be able to do that same thing around others. Because children will do what they see much more than what they are told. The final thing that I want to talk about is just trust and loyalty. Do you model that for your children? the biggest thing that I see in this is that many times parents don't allow their children to save face when the child has made a mistake. The parent will just go and blab and blab and blab about this seemingly horrible thing that the child did, or this pretty embarrassing thing that their child did. And you think it's funny, and the people listening to the story think it's funny, or you think it's outrageous, and the people listening to the story think that it's outrageous. But did you protect your child's trust? I'm not saying that you can't have trusted friends or a therapist that you talk with about the difficulties that you and your child or you and your children are facing. But what I am saying is that when a child walks into a room at a holiday, does everybody have the inside joke about that child? And the child isn't that happy about it, but everybody else thinks it's hilarious. Because if that's the case, then you're not modeling for your child what trust and what loyalty look like. If children will learn these social skills, then they can become even more socially savvy. And you'll be amazed at how socially savvy children really are. They know how to act in front of adults. They know how to act in front of their peers. They know how to act in front of authority figures. They know how to do it, but they'll learn it even better if you'll model it for them. Because children will do what they see much more than what they are told, because after all, humans are social creatures. And us collectively is so much better than us alone. And so instilling these skills in children and allowing them to be socially savvy allows them to experience life more fully. Model those skills for your children. Model appropriate communication. Model appropriate regulation. Model appropriate negotiation. Model appropriate trust and loyalty. And your children will learn those skills too. Because children will do what they see much more than what they are told. And if they see you doing it, they'll be excited to do it too. I will be back again in 2 weeks with another conversation about supporting children in your life. And also check out every single Friday from now until the end of the year. There is already content booked to come out on YouTube, youtube.com/@MrStuTV. Don't miss it. You will be so upset if you do. I'll be back again in 2 weeks to talk with you, and I'll see you all over the place on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at Mr. Stu TV. I'll see you there. Until then, spread the word, share the love. Bye-bye.